Do you think everything in the Bible is there for a reason? Even its unrecognizable place names? I've spent nearly 30 years studying this question. Join me to experience how the regions of the Holy Land are part of the story. I'm Jack Beck, and this is the Holy Land. Have you been looking for the perfect Mediterranean vacation destination? This 190-mile-long coastline has it all. Sun-drenched beaches, the remains of ancient empires rising from the sand, local cuisine, shopping, and seafront views that stretch forever. This can all be yours. This is the Holy Land. Surprised? Well, you'll also be surprised that in Bible times, everyone wanted to be here, on the coastal plain of the Holy Land, and I do mean everyone. As they say in real estate, it's all about location, location, location. I have no words equal to the view. This is the coastal plain. The coastal plain doesn't host a lot of Bible stories, but it helps me answer a question on which the Bible is silent. Why would the Lord choose this as the Holy Land? Why here on the east side of the Mediterranean rather than in North America, South America, Europe? Why here? It had to be more than just the Mediterranean climate and good food. Nearly 40 centuries ago, God first spoke to a man named Abraham about this land along the sea. At that time, Abraham lived some 2,000 miles away in what today is modern-day Iraq. There, God promised a land to Abraham, descendants too numerous to count, and then inconceivably, God promised that through him, all families of the earth would be blessed. But again, why would God choose this sliver of land as the stage for such an epic story of blessing for the world? The geopolitical neighborhood gives us a major clue as to why God chose this region. The Holy Land, also called the Promised Land, is a land bridge connecting the continents of Africa, Asia, and Europe. Every ancient empire wanted to control this strip of land. But why? The ancient coastal city of Ashkelon can tell us more about why other empires wanted to be here. This 150-acre city was built by the Canaanites, one of the first people to occupy the coastal plain. Welcome to the city of Ashkelon, a city that is one of the largest coastal cities in the ancient world in this location, a city of merchants, a city that was built at the time of Abraham and the time of Jacob. The story of this place in so many respects is found in its name. Ashkelon, if you listen carefully, Ashkelon has the word shekel in it. Shekel is the currency weight that the Canaanites used in order to conduct their trade enterprise. That was the economics of this place. They built a massive city based on that economy. This city is 20 times larger than the average community in the interior in the mountains. And man, if you've got the money, everybody wants it. So what do you have to do? Protect yourself. And look at this! Look at this. They have built a security fence around themselves called a rampart. Inside the rampart, you have some stones that are built and then draped with soil in order to prevent people from getting to the interior. But a great wall is only as good as an excellent gate. And what they did here is construct the oldest surviving mud brick arch gate in the world. At the time of Abraham and Jacob, the Canaanites here invented the arch. This is the way into the merchant city, the city that's built big and protected carefully. Can't help but think how a shepherd like Abraham or Jacob must have felt if they saw a place like this. They were living in tents, moving from place to place to place in the mountain interior. And the Canaanites out here, they built this massive urban center 20 times larger than anything Abraham had seen in the interior. And the difference Both are part of the Promised Land, but the difference here on the coastal plain is the advantage of geography. The coastal plain that includes Ashkelon is a gently rolling plain that stretches for 190 miles along the Mediterranean Sea. But the mountainous interior is where ancient Israel settled. As a result, the coastal plain hosts fewer Bible stories. And so when we read our Bible, we might ask, what's the significance of this region? What in the world is the coastal plain all about? In 2 words, it's about transportation and access. God made maps to be flat and laps not, so this is the challenge. If the Promised Land is a land bridge between the continents of Asia and Africa and Europe, then the easiest way to move between those continents is here on the coastal plain. In the Central Mountain Zone here, you see very little by way of road system. But look at this. Look at all of the road systems that are running through here in comparison to what we see up in the mountains. It's because people could travel in lots of different directions in lots of different ways because the terrain didn't prevent them from doing so. It's the coastal plain that carried the international traffic and port cities along the Mediterranean Sea for distribution of goods around the entire Mediterranean basin. If you had to pick a part of the Promised Land that was the most desirable, this is the place that I would pick. It is the place to grow fat and wealthy. Today, the modern city of Tel Aviv is also a place to prosper on the coastal plain. It is the second largest city in the Holy Land. Ashkelon must have had crowded markets and shops just like this. I'm everyone's friend when I have money to buy something. Tel Aviv is the financial center of the country. And guess what? Just like the people of Ashkelon 4,000 years later, they still use the word shekel as the name of their currency.
5 shekels!
You have a very good way of meeting people. I love it. Making money and the coastal lifestyle drive the vibe of Tel Aviv. This is more secular than Jerusalem. In fact, some say people play in Tel Aviv and pray in Jerusalem. And that separation between people of faith living up near Jerusalem and the secular lifestyle of the coast was even more dramatic throughout biblical history. That looks so good.
Poppy seed kid. Good.
Oh my gosh.
Is it good?
What's so surprising to me when I think about the story of the Bible is even though the coastal plain is part of the Promised Land, it's almost never controlled by the people of God. It's the world beyond that controls the coastal plain. Through the centuries, from the Canaanites to the Egyptians to the Philistines, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, and the Romans, it's always somebody else in this land. As for God's people, being close to so much ancient pagan influence, it could make it look like God chose the wrong neighborhood. But that idea would be wrong. Why would the Lord allow the world to live in that space when His chosen people are tucked away up in the hill country? I think it's because He wanted to keep the world close. The plan of salvation matures with the crucifixion and the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. And when that story had matured to its fullest point, then the story was moved from the Central Mountains out into the coastal plain. It's the world at Israel's doorstep. In the first century, the good news of forgiveness reversed the tide of pagan influence on this holy land along the sea and spread that light across the Roman Empire. When we read the Bible, it's not about the absence of stories in the coastal plain. If we focus there, we won't get it. It's not about the absence, it's about the access that the coastal plain gives to the people of God that allows them to reach the rest of the world. Have you stopped to think that we live where we do because God has a purpose for our place. God has a habit of putting people in exactly the places He needs them to be. Just like He did by bringing Abraham to this land between the continents.